What's going on, guys? Over here. Welcome back to a brand new video today, and welcome to, well, what's becoming almost a staple on the channel in terms of like a little qualifying review after qualifying. And thankfully this time round I don't have the elimination qualifying to kind of get annoyed about. Obviously, if you have not been clued up, we went back to the 2015 style qualifying, so just the regular shootout where they get, knocked out at the end of the round, thank the Lord. So that wasn't an issue to talk about, but there'll be plenty of interesting things that happen in qualifying which should kind of make the race quite interesting in some regards and quite boring maybe in some other regards. So, spoiler warning, if you haven't watched qualifying yet, I'm going to talk about the results. So, obviously, if you have seen it, huge news of Lewis Hamilton going out of qualifying and starting at the back of the grid. Obviously, we knew he already had a grid penalty for a gearbox change, so the team chose that at China because they just felt like, it was easier just to take it then and here at this circuit. And, obviously, gearbox issues, you don't want that going in a race and then he would have to retire from a race, so better to kind of take the penalty. But then, obviously, this morning they had some engine issues, and through qualifying they couldn't solve them, and they just decided not to go out and try and fix it and kind of look into it over the night for the race. So here's hoping that they can get that sorted, because it could be quite an interesting race for Lewis Hamilton from the back. In the Mercedes, a very, obviously, as you can see by how Q3 went, a very good car, obviously, as Rosberg showed. He got on pole position, and even in Q2 he flexed his muscles. He was on the soft tyres in Q2 and managed to get third place, 9/10 ahead of the likes of Force India, who are on super soft tyres. So that car is pretty damn quick, so it's going to be very interesting to see how Hamilton can do. I think he'll probably definitely, be aiming for a podium. I think that's definitely possible, especially China, long back straight. So let me know where you think Hamilton could climb up to, and that's definitely going to be something to look at towards the kind of back end of the field for once, in the race. But looking further ahead to the kind of top end of the grid, we saw Nico Rosberg getting pole position from Daniel Ricciardo in second place, and that was mainly due to some mistakes by Ferrari, but you cannot deny that Ricciardo put the lap together at least and did the job when he needed to get the lap in. And Rosberg got a pole position time of 1:35.4 and Ricciardo with a 1:35.9. So you can see that's a huge difference between pole and second place. So just showing the Mercedes really does have the pace at the moment in qualifying at least. Obviously, we've seen in the race in Australia and Bahrain that the Ferrari can close the gap back up to Mercedes in race pace terms, but definitely it looks like over one lap, Mercedes still really have it all together, and it's all for them to kind of throw it away and for other teams to kind of catch up. Kimi Raikkonen in third place and Sebastian Vettel in fourth. Now Vettel made a mistake into the hairpin, and it also wasn't amazing out of the kind of long swooping right-hander in sector 3, and Raikkonen generally just, I don't think he got the lap together. He might have made a few mistakes. He did look pretty good. He got provisional pole early on in Q3, but then Rosberg came in and banged the lap time in, so it was looking promising for Raikkonen, unfortunately. But he has outqualified Vettel, which is, I think, quite an interesting thing, because obviously so far this season we've seen Vettel so far ahead of Kimi Raikkonen in terms of the qualifying pace and in the race. Obviously Raikkonen's got unlucky in Australia, but also now Vettel got his bad luck in Bahrain. So it was all to play for here in China in terms of the two teammates battling, and it looks like Kimi surprisingly has got the one up on Vettel, which is nice to see. Obviously there's many talks about, is Raikkonen doing the job? That's a huge debate from last season as well. So it's good to see Raikkonen's ahead of Vettel in that regard so far in the weekend. We'll see how the race pans out, but generally it looks like Vettel hasn't been able to actually match Raikkonen. We've seen in the previous qualifying sessions and also practice sessions that Raikkonen has had that little step over Vettel, it seems like. So maybe he's been dialed into the setup a little bit more. Him and all the drivers have been complaining about tyre pressures this weekend, which is a huge factor, I think, in terms of how the tyres react and how they're going to overheat perhaps in China if it's dry. It is going to be dry tomorrow, so that might be a factor. That basically Pirelli have set some minimum tyre pressures, and a lot of the drivers are complaining that the minimum tyre pressures are a bit too high on the front end, and the front end just kind of feels very, very stiff and unresponsive, and that's what happens when you put too much pressure into the tyres. So that's kind of for safety reasons. Pirelli have done that from last season. You remember that whole debacle, in Monza with Mercedes. But a lot of drivers complaining about that. I'm not too sure if they lower them or not. I definitely think Pirelli said it wasn't like a staple thing, and that they could maybe lower them if they felt it was okay to do so. But now looking more towards the midfield and the tail end of the grid to kind of see how that went, we saw Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button in 12th and 13th place. Alonso very gutted to miss out on Q3. They weren't too far off on Q3, which is absolutely awesome to see. And Alonso very, very frustrated. Awesome team radio where he got like kind of just really, you could see the kind of annoyance and passion he had for not getting into Q3. So that was great to see. And we also saw a bit of a resurgence from Sauber. Sauber 15th and 16th, out qualifying both Renaults and one of the Haas cars. So really awesome to see from Sauber that, you know, with so much financial struggle, we talked about it on the podcast, on the Pit Lane podcast that I do with Cal and Tom, that they've had so many financial struggles and they, you know, you can clearly see they're struggling, but great to see that they can out qualify Renault this Grand Prix, and big shame from Renault. 17th and 19th, Palmer in 19th, Kevin Magnussen 17th. Yeah, they're going to be kicking themselves. I think it's very clear to see that maybe, you know, even though they maybe started off on a higher note that they thought they would in Australia, it looks like now the kind of actual gremlins have caught back up to them and they just can't seem to get it together in qualifying. They don't seem to have the pace to actually, you know, consistently be there above Sauber, which we thought they might be after Australia and Bahrain. So Romain Grosjean 16th and 14th place, just behind the McLaren cars. So once again, Haas don't qualify amazingly well, but in the race we know that their pace has been pretty good, and generally with their strategy they're a team that likes to go very aggressive, so they could make it work here in China. Obviously the tyres wear quite a lot here in China, you know, the super softs aren't really going to go that much, so it's going to be, you know, it's interesting to see if Haas can go aggressive like they went in Bahrain. You know, Bahrain they went with plenty of super soft tyres, but here in China I don't know if that's going to be the case. You know, there's quite a lot of graining here in China. It's a front limited circuit, so the front tyres are the ones that really kind of get a bit of a pummeling into the first few corners and in the, you know, generally through the middle sector. So it's going to be interesting to see if Grosjean can actually climb up that car up, and if he can get points again, that would be absolutely flipping fantastic for them and the team. So let me know what you think, guys, about that, and let me know about if you think McLaren could score some more points this weekend. Obviously, China, you wouldn't think so. China is, you know, a long back straight. Honda, we know, are a bit down in power, although saying that in Q2, Alonso was fastest in the speed traps. I don't know how that happened. I don't even know if that was a glitch or not, but that was pretty crazy to see nonetheless. I mean, FI officially tweeted it out and put it on their Facebook page, so I don't think it was a mistake, but, you know, that was a bit crazy to see. So they are making some gains, so it could be interesting to see if they could get points. So going on to kind of Q3 and the top 10 runners, obviously now it's top 10, not top 8. Thank God, again, that elimination qualifying got put away. So Hulkenberg got into Q3, but he actually lost his wheel at the end of Q2, so that meant he didn't set a time in Q3, so he starts in P10, but very unfortunate for them. They probably might get a little bit of penalty, maybe a fine. I'm hoping that it's just a fine for him. That'd be a bit unfortunate if he gets a penalty, a grid penalty for the race, or a penalty that gets added on into the race or for next round for that. But it was technically an unsafe release because he was going around the track and the wheel just kind of, well, just sort of popped off and started rolling down the track. So that was very interesting to see, very funny to see actually. So unfortunate for Hulkenberg. You can see the Toro Rosso in 8th and 9th place. So Toro Rosso, I don't know, we've said it in the podcast before, but Toro Rosso, they seemed so much better in pre-season. We thought they might be ahead of Red Bull, and even Red Bull thought that themselves, and I guess Red Bull are quite surprised themselves at how far they are in terms of, you know, they're ahead of Toro Rosso still from last season. So, you know, unfortunate, I think, and they'll be a little bit upset that they haven't been able to at least out-qualify one of the Red Bull teams, because it seemed like they did have a pretty good car in pre-season, and so far it just hasn't culminated so well. We saw in Australia, obviously, Verstappen did a great job, but I think that was more people tripping up on themselves and not doing such a great job with elimination qualifying. But anyway, getting back to the actual pole fight, Rosberg pole position, looking mighty, so I think the race is for his to lose. Plenty of you guys on Twitter agree with me. Plenty of you guys saying the same thing on Twitter, that is, it really is his to lose. Ferrari have really messed up the strategy a little bit because they also qualified on super softs in Q2, so they have to start on that tyre, whereas Rosberg's qualified on soft, so he starts on the soft tyres. So Rosberg's in such a better position because he can go longer into the first stint on soft tyres, and super softs are going to wear out so fast. I think they're going to grain quite a lot, so I think you're going to see both Ferraris and even, you know, generally the top 10, they're going to complain about graining on the front tyres, you know, early onto the Grand Prix. And I think it was around, I think they were saying maybe lap 6 to 10 that people are going to make their pit stops off the super soft tyres, you know, maybe earlier if they're trying to do an undercut. It's all for Rosberg to lose. Ricciardo in second place. I don't know what he can do. To be honest, I think it might be a case of he's going a little bit backwards, but Daniel Kvyat did qualify in 6th place, so they're not too far. You know, that wasn't too surprising for Red Bull. So they might fall behind Ferrari, but I don't think they could. I think they have the pace to stay ahead of the Williams team, which is Bottas in 5th place and Massa in 11th place, who didn't get the job done in Q2 and couldn't get the job done at the end because of the red flag from Hulkenberg. But yeah, very interesting qualifying. I think, thank God that it was an elimination elimination again, and I think we can clearly see that the FI have made the right choice, and thank God that they kind of admitted to it. It was great to see the teams uniting and sending a letter to FI to say, just stop the madness, let's do the normal qualifying, and, we got what we wanted, and, there wasn't any kind of funny business about it. The only thing that was weird, which I don't know if any of you guys agree, a little bit stupid in Q1 that they kind of halt the session for like, what was it, 20 minutes just to clean some water up and kind of get Verline's car out of the way. That was a little bit annoying. That I feel like they should just go out and do the qualifying, session and just, let the drivers have the challenge of, going on these puddles on slick tires. So that was a little bit weird, but yeah. Anyway, guys, that was my little review of qualifying. I hope you guys have been enjoying these. I think it's kind of almost become a little staple of the channel. We did it for Australia, we've done it for Bahrain. Admittedly, both of those have been to talk about elimination qualifying more so, but it's nice to kind of talk about qualifying. Just get your thoughts in the comments below. I know you guys are going to fill the comments with your predictions for the race, so let me know what you think about that. So let me know all that good stuff. Do you think Hamilton can get back for a podium? Where do you think Ferrari will finish? Do you think Ricciardo's going to fall back? Do you think McLaren could score some points? And do you think Grosjean could climb that Haas car back up into the points once again? Let me know all that good stuff in the comments below. But I've been aarava. If you have enjoyed the video, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below once again. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for weekly Formula 1 content. There will be the Pit Lane podcast tomorrow, straight after or as soon as I can after the Chinese Grand Prix, to kind of review the Chinese Grand Prix. So stick around for that, the Pit Lane podcast with myself, Cal, and Tom. I'll see you guys round. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye.